My name is Lauren, and the day a tow truck hooked my dad's classic Camaro and hauled it off his driveway. He ran after it in his slippers like someone was stealing his child. "Stop!" he shouted, pounding on the door of the truck. "You can't take her. That's my car." The driver rolled up the window. He knew better than to argue with a desperate owner. My dad spun around, wild-eyed, and saw me standing at the curb in my work blazer, clipboard in hand, watching. For a second, he didn't understand. Then his face crumpled. "You?" he said. "You did this?" "I processed the order," I said. "I didn't make the payment stop." He stared at the shrinking shape of the Camaro as it disappeared down the street. "That car was my dream," he whispered. I thought about the acceptance letter I'd once held in my hands, with a scholarship offer and a timeline that had evaporated overnight. "Yeah," I said. "So was college." This is the story of how my dad spent my tuition on a classic car and how, years later, I repossessed it. I grew up in a suburb outside St. Louis, in a brick ranch with a 2-car driveway and a dad who treated the driveway like sacred ground. My mom worked nights as a nurse at the hospital. My dad worked in HVAC, crawling into attics and under houses in all weather. We weren't rich, but we were okay. I had hand-me-down bikes and new sneakers every other year. Mom packed lunches. Dad fixed things instead of replacing them. There was one thing my dad always said he'd do right for us that his parents hadn't done for him. College. "My folks couldn't afford it," he'd say, leaning back in his chair after Sunday dinner. "I had to go straight to work, but my kids? You work hard, and I'll make sure you have a shot." When I was little, that promise was abstract. As I got older, it became everything. We called it the fund. Whenever my grandparents sent birthday money, Dad would say, "Straight into the fund." Whenever I asked if we could go somewhere expensive, he'd say, "Can't touch the fund. That's for your future." I pictured it like a fat piggy bank in a vault somewhere, slowly filling up with crumpled 20s and good intentions. I didn't know the fund had 4 wheels, chrome trim, and a V8. If my dad had a second religion after promising my future, it was cars. Not just any cars. Classic muscle. He could identify make, model, and year of half the cars at a summer cruisin' from the sound of their engines alone. Every Saturday morning, he'd have Motor Trend or some auction show on TV. He'd sigh wistfully whenever a late 60s Camaro or Mustang rolled across the screen. "One day," he'd say. "One day, I'm going to have one of those in my garage." In high school, I teased him about it. "Yeah, okay, Dad," I'd say. "If we're imagining things, I'll take a paid-off college degree and a tiny house with a reading nook." He'd laugh. "You get your degree, I'll get my car," he'd say. Fair trade. It sounded like a joke. It wasn't. I took his get your degree seriously. I wasn't a genius, but I worked. Honors classes. Extracurriculars that looked good on applications. I worked part-time at a frozen yogurt place. I did everything the guidance counselor checklist said to do. And it paid off. Senior year, I got into my dream school. A state university with a great business program, 3 hours away. I even snagged a partial scholarship based on grades. Not a full ride, but enough to make the numbers almost work. I came home waving the acceptance letter like a flag. Dad lifted me off the ground in a hug. "That's my girl," he said. "See? The fund wasn't for nothing." Mom cried. We celebrated with takeout. For a week, the house buzzed with talk of dorms and majors and football games. Then, slowly, the tone shifted. The first hint was a brochure that arrived in the mail for a local community college. Mom left it on the counter. "Just in case," she said. "They have a good program too. Closer. Cheaper." I picked it up, flipped through, and put it back. "I want to go away," I said. "We talked about this. We talked about options," she said. I didn't see the second hint until later. A glossy flyer for a collector car auction on the kitchen table. A circle around one listing. 1969 Camaro SS, Hugger orange, matching numbers. My dad's handwriting in the margin. Dream car. The night everything shifted, we were back at that same kitchen table. This time, there was no takeout. Just bills. Lots of them. Dad had a calculator in front of him, brow furrowed. Mom had that pinched look she got when she was trying to hide worry. I had my financial aid package and a notebook. "Okay," I said, trying to sound calm. Tuition plus fees minus my scholarship equals this much. Room and board is this much. The school says the expected family contribution is about that, Dad cut in. My stomach dropped. About what? I asked. He exchanged a look with Mom. She sighed. There isn't as much in the fund as we thought, she said. I clung to the last 3 words. As we thought. How much is in it? I asked. Dad stared at the calculator like it might save him. Nothing, he said finally. Right now. I blinked. Nothing? I repeated. We had to use some of it, Mom said quickly. When your appendix surgery bills came in. When the AC died. When the truck needed a new transmission. Life happens, Lauren. Some of it, I said. What about the rest? Silence. Dad? I pressed. He looked miserable. There was an opportunity, he said slowly. A once-in-a-lifetime deal. A guy from my car club was selling his '69 Camaro. Dirt cheap for what it was. I've been dreaming about that car for 20 years. I stared at him. No, I said. You didn't. He couldn't meet my eyes. It was an investment, he said. Those things only go up in value. I figured I'd flip it, put the money back before you needed it. Then my hours got cut, and one thing led to another. And Dan, now there's no fund. I finished. It's not like that, he said. The car is the fund now. We can sell it later. Or use it as collateral. It's an asset. I laughed. It was an ugly sound. You used my college savings to buy yourself a toy, I said. And you're calling it an asset. It's not a toy, he snapped. It's my dream. And one day, it'll be your inheritance. I wanted an education, not a chassis, I said. Mom slammed her hand on the table. Watch your tone, she said. We didn't do this to hurt you. We did what we thought was best for the family. Your father works himself to death. He deserves something for himself. You have a scholarship. You're smart. You can take loans. You can do community college for a year or 2. There are always options. Her options all started with me giving something up. You promised, I said quietly. Since I was 10, you promised the fund was for college. And we meant it, Dad said. Things just changed. Things changed when you decided a car mattered more than the timeline of my life, I said. You could have told me. We could have planned, applied to different schools, looked for more aid. Instead, you hit it like I wouldn't notice if the vault was empty. I pushed back from the table, my chair scraping. Where are you going? Mom demanded. To work, I said. I have a shift. Someone has to pay for my future. You're being dramatic, she said. We'll figure it out. She always said that. Never with a plan. I didn't go to my dream university. I went to the community college 15 minutes away. I took a full load of classes and worked 30 hours a week at a big box store customer service desk, dealing with returns and complaints. I took out small loans. Not enough to drown me, but enough to make a difference. I watched my high school friends post pictures from their dorms, football games, study groups, late-night pizza. I posted pictures of my cat and the occasional latte, pretending that was by choice. At home, the car dominated everything. It sat in the garage under a custom cover when Dad wasn't polishing it. When he was, he'd roll it out into the driveway, the orange paint blinding in the sun. Neighbors stopped to admire. Man, she's a beauty, they'd say. She's my baby, he'd replied, beaming. He called it she more often than he ever called me by name. He joined a car club. Weekend cruises. Cars and coffee. Photo shoots in front of murals. He had a framed picture of the Camaro on his nightstand. The framed acceptance letter he'd once hung in the kitchen disappeared into a drawer. Any time I tried to bring up selling it just until I finished school, Dad, you can buy another later, he acted like I'd asked him to amputate a limb. Absolutely not, he'd say. We'd lose money selling quick. Besides, you don't sell a car like this. You hold on to it. It's appreciating. So would my education, I'd mutter. He didn't hear me. Or pretended not to. Eventually, I finished my associate degree. Then I transferred to the in-state university in the city. No dorms. No campus life. Just commuting, packing meals in a cooler, and going to class after shifts. I got a degree in business with a focus on finance. Partly because I found the subject oddly satisfying. Partly because I wanted insurance that I'd never be this blind about money again. Near the end of college, I landed an internship at an auto finance company. We handled loans for a bunch of regional dealerships. It was mostly data entry and filing at first. I worked hard, stayed late, asked questions. How do we decide who gets approved? What makes a loan bad? What happens when people stop paying? Some of the answers made me uncomfortable. High interest, aggressive collections. But some of them felt like clarity. We were working inside a system my dad barely understood. He saw loans as a bank being nice. I was learning they were calculated bets. If you played with them wrong, you burned. When the internship turned into a full-time job after graduation, I took it. I moved into a shared apartment near the office. My student loan payments started. They were manageable. Annoying but manageable. Every month, as I clicked submit on the payment, I thought of that orange Camaro. Of the check my dad had written to the seller. Of the down payment my future had become sitting under a tarp. Over the next few years I moved up. From data entry to collections rep. From collections to recovery specialist. We had a whole division for repossessions. Our job was simple, on paper. Call people when they were late. Set up payment plans when possible. When not possible, assign the account to a repo agent. Real life was messy. People cried. Begged. Sometimes they really were victims of bad luck. Job loss. Medical bills. Sometimes they were just bad at priorities. Too many toys. Not enough discipline. I learned how to talk to both. I learned when to say yes to extensions and when to say no. I also learned how to read an auto loan file like a life story. Down payment amount. Interest rate. Term. Payment history. You could see who'd stretched beyond their means. Who'd been squeezed by a dealer into a bad deal. Who'd treated the loan like optional rent. There were accounts that bothered me. Predatory interest. Sales to people who clearly shouldn't have been approved. I did what I could within the rules. Flagged obvious abuses. Advocated for fairer terms when we could. But I couldn't fix the whole industry. What I could fix was my own ignorance. By 30, I was supervising a small team in recovery. Oversaw which accounts got extra chances and which went to repo. It was a weird power to have. I tried to wield it carefully. Then a familiar Vienna name landed in my queue. Lauren Miller. 1969 Chevrolet Camaro SS. Borrower. Daniel Miller. My dad. I almost didn't recognize it at first. The loan wasn't with the company I worked for when he first bought the car. This was a second note. A refinance he'd taken out with a smaller finance company we'd acquired. The balance was, he'd refinanced to pull out cash for engine work and a new paint job. Of course he had. He'd had the car 10 years now. It looked better than ever. Photographs attached to the loan file taken by the dealer at appraisal time showed the glossy orange paint, the spotless black interior, the ridiculous custom sound system in the trunk. The payment history told a different story. On time for 6 months. Then a few late payments. Then a 30-day delinquency. A catch-up. Another delinquency. He was now 78 days past due. Letters had gone out. Calls had been made. He'd promised payments that never arrived. According to his file notes, his excuses were, hours cut at work, helping my brother with some bills. The bank messed up the draft, the standard mix. My hands shook slightly as I scrolled. The system had flagged the account as charge-off imminent. Translation: get the car or accept the loss. Policy said, at 60 days past due, a repossession order could be placed. At 90 days it should be. He was at 78. The account had landed in my queue because of a software assignment. It was random, but it felt like fate. I sat on it for a day. Technically, I wasn't supposed to. Files had timelines. We weren't allowed to forget repossessions just because we didn't like them. That was how you got fired or worse. But I'm human. I stared at my screen, the orange car staring back from the thumbnail, and argued with myself. Part of me wanted to call my dad directly. To say, you're about to lose it. Find the money, borrow it, sell something, anything. Part of me didn't want to give him a single extra chance. He'd already had 10 years of extra chances. All of them at my expense. In the end, I split the difference. I called. On my work line. I identified myself the way we're trained to. Hi, this is Lauren Miller from Keystone Auto Finance. I'm looking for Daniel Miller. This call may be monitored or recorded. There was a pause. Then his voice. Lauren, he said. You work for Keystone? I do, I said. And I'm calling about your account ending in 4392. He coughed. Oh, he said. I meant to call you guys. I've been 78 days past due, I said. We've received 3 broken promises to pay. Our system automatically assigned your account to my team because of the age and balance of the loan. That's awkward, he said weakly. But it's temporary. I'll catch up. You know I'm good for it. Was he? The numbers said no. My history with him said no. Dad, I said, dropping the formal tone, I'm calling you as a collections rep, not as your daughter. Our policy is clear. Once a loan is past 60 days, we can begin the repossession process. You are well past that. You do that to me? He asked, incredulous. To your own father? I'm not doing anything to you, I said. I'm enforcing the contract you signed. One you entered into after using my college fund for a down payment the first time. That again, he groaned. Are you ever going to let that go? No, I said. Not when it's literally still affecting my life. He huffed. So what? You're just going to send a tow truck without warning one day, he said. That's low, Lauren. This is the warning, I said. You have 7 days before the file moves to active repossession status. If you can bring the account current or at least get under 30 days past due, we can hold off. But I can't stop the process based on good intentions. I just need a little more time, he said. A couple of months. Things will turn around. I'd heard that line from hundreds of borrowers. It was almost never true. Time is what we sell, I said. On interest. You've already borrowed a lot of it. Silence crackled between us. Finally, he said, quieter. You sound just like them. I am them, I said. That's the job you said I'd never get if I didn't listen to you. He didn't have a comeback for that. 7 days, I repeated. After that, it's out of my hands. I hung up. I'd given him more than policy required. He did nothing with it. A week later, his account was 92 days past due. No payment. No arrangement. No miracle. The system automatically generated a repo-eligible flag. All it needed was a human confirmation. It came to my screen. Approve repossession order. Yes/no. My finger hovered over the mouse. I clicked yes. The file went to our preferred agency in his area. I sent a note with it. Owner is emotionally attached to vehicle, expect high resistance. Please follow all state laws and safety protocols. The agent, a guy named Ray I'd worked with for years, called me. Got an orange Camaro on Maple Street? He said. Classic. Your dad's, right? Yes, I said. Can you handle it cleanly? You sure you don't want to pass this to another vendor? He asked. I got no problem doing it. But I don't know if you want that smoke. I can't cherry-pick files, I said. It's business, not personal. Just be professional. No drama if you can help it. He whistled softly. Got it, he said. I'll go at dawn. Less audience. It was the right call. It didn't make it easier to watch. The morning of the repo, I drove by my parents' house before work. I didn't have to. Agents send in photos and condition reports. We almost never attend in person. But I wanted to see it with my own eyes. To make sure nothing got out of hand. To bear witness, I guess. Ray's truck was already there when I pulled up to the corner. The orange Camaro was on the driveway, nose out, like always. Ray was backing his flatbed up carefully, winch line ready. My dad burst out of the front door in sweatpants and a t-shirt, barefoot. He shouted things I couldn't quite hear from the car. Ray showed him paperwork. Explained calmly that the company had a legal right to recover the collateral. My dad tried the usual lines. Just give me till Friday. You can't do this, I'm only a little behind. My daughter works there, this is a misunderstanding. Ray shook his head. Sir, the order is valid, he said. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. The car's going either way. My dad made a grab for the door handle. Ray stepped back, hands up. I'm not arguing with you physically, he said. If you want to call the finance company, go ahead. But I have to do my job. That was my cue. I got out of my car and walked up the sidewalk. Dad saw me and froze. What are you doing here? He demanded. Supervising, I said. Making sure this goes by the book. He gaped. You set this up, he accused. You could have stopped it. I called you, I said. I gave you extra time. You chose not to act. I didn't have the money, he said. You know that. You had 10 years to plan for that, I said. You had a decade to sell it on your terms, to pay down the balance, to maybe put some of that value back into the education you took from me. You chose not to. This is what comes next. He looked genuinely wounded. It's a car, he said hoarsely. It's just a car to you. It's my life. I thought about the acceptance letter, the textbooks, the nights at the big box store, the classmates I'd never become. I thought about hoping the fund would magically reappear in time and watching an orange blur pull out of the driveway instead. No, I said. It was my life. You made it your car. He opened his mouth, closed it, and stepped back. Ray winched the Camaro up onto the flatbed. The front wheels left the asphalt. The ratchet clicked. Dad watched like he was at a funeral. Mom stood on the porch with her robe pulled tight, face pale, saying nothing. When the truck pulled away, Dad turned to me. You happy now? He spat. You've been punishing me for that college thing for years. Now you've got what you wanted. What I wanted, I said, was a dad who kept his promises. Failing that, I'll take a world where my job isn't controlled by the people who broke them. He shook his head. You're heartless, he said. No, I said. I just finally learned how to say no. He went inside and slammed the door. I got in my car and drove to work, the image of the Camaro in my rearview mirror burning a hole in my chest. Repossession isn't the end of the story for a car. After we take it, there's a whole process. Condition report. Storage. Then sell, usually at a dealer auction. The finance company applies the sale proceeds to the loan balance. If there's a deficit, technically the borrower still owes. In reality, we write off a lot of it. The Camaro went to auction 3 weeks later. Ray's report said it was in excellent condition. Low rust. New engine components. Stunning paint. Every car person in a 100-mile radius wanted it. Auction day, I watched the live feed from my laptop. I didn't have to. Again, I chose to. The opening bid was lower than it should have been. Repos sometimes carry a stigma. People assume there's something wrong with them. The price climbed. Still, it stalled below what I knew Dad had once been offered for the car in a private sale. Back when he could have chosen. My heart pounded. Company policy said employees couldn't bid directly at our own auctions, but there was nothing stopping a third-party buyer I knew from putting in a bid on my behalf. A friend from the office, Jake, had a dealer buddy with access. We'd talked hypothetically about this. About one day buying a repoed classic at a discount. I hadn't expected the car in question to be this one. But here we were. Jake texted me as the bids slowed. "Want in?" he wrote. I thought about it. About the ethics. About the optics. About the emotional fallout. Then I thought about what that car represented. Not just a bad decision. A pattern. A choice to prioritize shiny objects over long-term investments. To prioritize Dad's nostalgia over my future. If anyone was going to own that symbol now, I wanted it to be me. Last bid, Jake's text buzzed. Say the word. I typed back. Do it. Max, X amount. He entered the bid. The counter ticked. No one topped it. Sold, the announcer said. Just like that, the Camaro was mine. Legally, cleanly, with paperwork and a bill of sale. Paid for with my own savings, accumulated over years of doing the exact kind of work my father mocked. I felt, not triumphant, just oddly, deeply calm. I didn't drive straight to my parents' house with the car. That would have been petty. Tempting, but petty. Instead, I had it delivered to my apartment complex's secured garage. For a while, I just looked at it, sat in the driver's seat, ran my hands over the steering wheel. It was a beautiful car. I understood, in a small way, why my dad had been so obsessed. The rumble of the engine, the smell of old leather and gasoline, the way people's heads turned when it rolled by. But I also felt the weight of what it had cost, not just in dollars, in trust, in time, in opportunities. After a few weeks, I took it to a different kind of auction. This one open to the public. I listed it with a reserve price that would more than cover what I'd paid plus some. The response was immediate. Serious buyers. Classic car people. People who, as far as I could tell, could actually afford their toys. On auction day, I watched from the sidelines as a man in his 50s and a younger woman, his daughter, from the way they looked over the car. It's beautiful, she said. It is, he replied. But it's a luxury. We make sure everything else is in order first. She nodded. College, house, then cars, she said. Right? Right, he said. Something in my chest unknotted. They bid. They won. I signed the title over. Walked away with a check that would wipe out my remaining student loan balance and put a decent chunk into my savings for a down payment on a house. The car left my life the same way it had entered it, as a transfer of potential. Only this time, the potential pointed toward me. When my parents found out, it wasn't because I told them. It was because the grapevine in our town runs faster than fiber optic cable. Someone from the original car club had seen the auction listing. He recognized the VIN. Called my dad. Hey man, he said. Thought you sold the Camaro to the bank. Saw it at Metro Classics with some young woman's name on the seller line. Know anything about that? Dad, to his credit, called me before exploding. Did you sell my car? He asked without preamble. No, I said. I sold my car. You know what I mean, he said. The Camaro. You bought it at auction just to flip it? I bought it at auction because it was a good deal, I said. I sold it because my long-term goals don't include keeping relics of bad decisions in my garage. That car was mine, he said. Legally, it wasn't when I got it, I said. You signed the title over to the finance company when you took the loan. You stopped paying. They took it. I bought it. That's how ownership works. He was quiet for a moment. That car was supposed to be your inheritance, he said softly. I think I found a better use for it, I said. It paid off the debt I took on going to school without the fund. Seems poetic. You're punishing me, he said. Maybe, I said. Or maybe I'm just refusing to keep carrying the cost of your choices. He sighed. I know I screwed up, he said. With the college money, with the loan, but you could have given it back. You could have let me buy it from you. Could I? I asked. With what money? Another loan you couldn't pay? The cycle had to stop somewhere, Dad. He didn't have an answer. Do you hate me? He asked quietly. I paused. No, I said honestly. I don't hate you. I'm disappointed. I'm hurt. I'm done letting your dreams take priority over mine. That's different. He was silent for a long time. Then he said, You're tougher than I thought. I had to be, I said. We said goodbye. I don't know if he'll ever fully forgive me for taking his car. I'm not sure I'll ever fully forgive him for taking my fund. But I know this. For the first time, the balance between us feels level. He lost a car he couldn't afford to keep. I gained a life I can. When people hear this story, they like to imagine the repo as some vengeful, cinematic moment. Me, cackling while the tow truck drags away his pride and joy. It wasn't like that. It was messy, sad, awkward, but it was also necessary. For him, for me, for the quiet 18-year-olds out there who are being told that their futures are less important than someone else's midlife crisis. If you're listening to this and thinking, I could never do that to my dad, I get it. It's hard to separate love from enabling. To say, I love you, but I won't shield you from the results of your actions. What I learned, sitting on both sides of those loan files, is this. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let the repo happen. Not out of spite, out of respect for reality. My dad spent my tuition on a classic car. For years, that car sat in our driveway like a monument to a choice I didn't get to make. Repossessing it didn't rewrite history. It didn't give me back my 18-year-old self in a dorm room. But it did something almost as important. It put the consequences of that choice back where they belonged. On him. Not me. And in the process, it helped pay off the education he thought I couldn't get without him. Turns out I didn't need the fund. I needed information. Boundaries. And, eventually, the courage to sign off on a repo order with my own last name on it. Thank you for listening to my story.